All right, let's pick up where we left off because Joe Biden announcing his latest economic disaster plan yesterday, which includes forgiving up to $20,000 of student debt per borrower that make less than $125,000 a year. It also postpones the interest and payments on loans till the end of this year, which has already cost us billions of dollars. Conservatives and economists are blasting the plan, saying it will only fan the flames of inflation, and that's being polite, while benefiting those that need it the least, giving a handout to doctors, lawyers, engineers, and others who could afford to pay back the money they borrowed for those well-paying careers and degrees. Instead, that cost shifted back to the backs of the taxpayers, the middle class folks, the union workers, the single moms, including those that couldn't afford to go to college for whatever reason or chose not to and be more financially responsible to avoid the loans. Joining me here to discuss the story, former U.S. Comptroller General David Walker. And David, there's one more part of this. They keep talking about the $10,000 or the $20,000 and are ignoring the fact that he made a point that if you make payments for 20 years and you still have debt, it's all wiped out. If you take a government job and a government check for 10 years and you're a public servant, your debt is wiped out after 10 years. So you can go to some useless liberal cesspool like Oberlin College in Ohio, easy target, rack up $350,000 in debt. If you take a government job and you pay on it for 10 years and there's still 300 grand sitting there, it's all wiped out. It's insanity, David.
Well, Steve, a lot of people are talking about the inequity issues, and you're touching on one right now. A lot of people are talking about the inflationary impact, which is true. A lot of people are talking about the fiscal irresponsibility, but they're not talking about the main issue. What the president is proposing to do is unconstitutional. The largest asset on the federal government's balance sheet is student loans. The president is proposing to dispose of hundreds of billions of dollars of federal assets unilaterally, which in effect is backdoor spending. Only the Congress has the power of the purse under the Constitution. He can delay payment under current law. He cannot forgive debt under current law. Only the Congress can do that, which he would have to sign, either over or a veto would have to. And so he is proposing an unconstitutional act. And that's what's not getting enough attention. It must not be allowed to stand. No president should be able to do this. It fundamentally changes the balance of power under the Constitution of the United States. It is illegal. It is inequitable. It is inflationary. It is fiscally irresponsible, and it must not stand.
Other than that, it's great. Other than that short list, it's fabulous, David. I mean, you can see all of these things. I mean, they claim that the Inflation Reduction Act would bring inflation down by about $100 billion over 10 years. This will spend, new analysis, $900 billion if it's allowed to stand. And that's if it's not renewed, expanded. And nobody can figure how many people have made payments for 10 years working for government that will be excused of their payment, or 20 years in the private sector and be excused for their payment. That number could push it well past $1 trillion. You know, I'm just some kid that grew up on a backcountry road, but I can figure that out. I'm not mathematically and financially illiterate like the people in Washington continue to prove that they are. So the question then becomes, David, how do we stop it? If it's unconstitutional, which I agree with you, is it a class action lawsuit from people like myself who paid off student loans? Is it some sort of a challenge? Because it would have to make it to the Supreme Court, I would guess, because all of these activist judges would give it a pass-through. How do we stop it?
Well, the key is who has standing, because you don't want the case to be disposed of who's standing. Logically, the party who's actually being aggrieved the most is the Congress of the United States. And even Nancy Pelosi stated publicly within the last 2 years that the president had the right to delay payment, but not to forgive payment. Now she's waffling. The Congress has a responsibility to protect their interests under the Constitution of the United States. So the ideal party would be the Congress as an institution because of the breach of their powers under the proposed breach by the president. The question is, who else might have standing? And I'm looking into that right now because this is something that cannot be allowed to stand.
Now, he says he can do it under the power that is vested in the Department of Education. You dispute that.
Absolutely. And by the way, that power is a limited power that is supposed to be used for national emergency. My question is, what's the national emergency? COVID-19 is no longer a national emergency. In addition, as I said, clearly has the power to delay payment. But what he doesn't have the power to do is forgive debt.
All right, let me ask you something else here, David, because this is an important consideration. Because I do not like the student loan scam, and it really is. Ever since 2009, Barack Obama has put to work for the United States government tens of millions of people. I know somebody who has a $50,000 student loan debt. Payments have been made steadily for 10 years. It has not changed. It has not changed appreciably. All the payments have been made. It's still $50,000 because the United States government front loads all of the interest on these loans. Front loads it all. People have no chance to ever pay this off. It's unconscionable what they did, but it is a terrific cash flow for the United States government. They can count on all that money when they have the loans being paid. All that money's coming in. It can't stand that way. You can't put citizens in a position where they can never pay off the student loan. You can't have Joe Biden just arbitrarily saying, oh, we're going to give back this money. There has to be a solution, sir. What do you think it might be?
There's no question that it has to be reformed. Basically, they're adopting the same.
All right, then.
Up front, okay. Candidly, my personal view is the government ought to look towards providing some type of public financing for community college, which is 2 years, or trade school. Beyond that, individuals should be on their own. If the federal government is going to provide loans for individuals that want education beyond that, it needs to be from institutions and with degrees that we as a country have a need for. There should be some reason for people to provide some forms of public service, if you will, but the entire program has to be reformed because the way that it is right now, among other things, just serves to increase tuition costs beyond the reach and reasonableness in this country.
Of course it does, because the majority of student loans go to public universities, which means one arm of government is paying another arm of government, and the middleman is the student who gets put on the hook for the debt of government money being transferred from one place to the other and taken away from the taxpayers. David, I could talk about this a lot longer, sir. Good conversation. Please come back anytime, because I think people need a full understanding of the screwing the American taxpayer is taking right now, if I might be so bold. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
All right.